Captain Jake Morrison walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth crystal floor. The room was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Strange lights floated in the air, without any wires or supports. The walls curved up so high that he could barely see the ceiling. Jake wore his best uniform, the dark blue one with gold buttons that his grandmother had sewn for him before he left Earth. He carried a small bag with important papers about humanity's request. His heart beat fast, but he kept his face calm. 50,000 people on his colony ship were counting on him. The aliens in the chamber looked at him like he was a bug that had crawled onto their dinner table. The Zephyrians stood 12 feet tall, their bodies made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through them in slow waves. They whispered to each other in musical tones that hurt Jake's ears. The Vraktor were different. They looked like giant insects with 6 arms and heads that moved too fast. Their black eyes never blinked. They clicked and buzzed when they talked. Jake had read about them in his files. They were good at building things and fighting wars. The ethereals were the strangest of all. They floated in glass containers filled with green gas. Jake could see shapes moving inside the gas, but he was not sure what they really looked like. They spoke through machines that made their voices sound like wind through trees. At the center of the chamber sat King Valdris of the Asterian Empire. He was the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. His people looked almost human, but taller and stronger. Their skin was silver like metal, and they had 4 eyes instead of 2. Valdris wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. Every time he moved, tiny lights sparkled around him. Jake stopped in front of the king's throne and bowed his head. He had practiced this moment many times on the ship. "Your Majesty," he said in the clearest voice he could manage, "I come here to speak for humanity. We ask for permission to mine metals on the worlds in the Outer Rim." The chamber became very quiet. Then several aliens started to laugh. The sound was not pleasant. It reminded Jake of the noise that broken machines made back on Earth. King Valdris raised one of his 4 hands. The laughter stopped at once. "So," he said, his voice deep and cold, "the newest species in the galaxy wants something from us." "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake said. "Our people need those metals to build homes and tools on our new world. We have studied the planets in the Outer Rim. Most other species do not want them because they are far away and hard to reach. But humans are good at working in difficult places." "Humans," said one of the Zephyrians, the words sounding like breaking glass. "They have no natural weapons, no thick skin, no way to speak with their minds. They are weak. They live such short lives," added a Vraktor. "What could they possibly build in such little time?" King Valdris stood up from his throne. He was even taller than Jake had expected. "Your species has been in space for less than 200 years, he said. "Others here have sailed between stars for thousands of years. What makes you think you deserve anything from us?" Jake had expected this question. He had prepared for it during the long journey from Earth. "Because we work hard, Your Majesty. Because we do not give up when things become difficult. Because we find ways to solve problems that others cannot solve." More laughter filled the chamber. This time it was louder and more cruel. "Prove it," said King Valdris suddenly. The laughter stopped. "You want mining rights? Very well. But first you must show us that your species is worthy of respect." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "What do you want me to do, Your Majesty?" The king smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "There is an old tradition among the great families of the galaxy. When a new species wants to join our circle, they must prove their worth through marriage. A bond between families shows trust and respect." "Marriage?" Jake asked. He had not expected this. "Yes," said the king. "You will marry my daughter, Princess Lyra. She will be your wife, and through her, humanity will be connected to the Asterian Empire." The aliens around the chamber began to whisper and click excitedly. Jake could tell they thought this was very funny, but he did not understand why. "I accept, Your Majesty," Jake said quickly. He did not have a choice. Without those mining rights, the people on his ship would have no way to build their new life. King Valdris clapped his hands together. Excellent. Guards, bring my daughter. The great doors opened again and several Asterian soldiers walked in. Behind them came a woman who was clearly the princess. She was tall like her father, with the same silver skin and 4 eyes. But something was different about her. Her skin was covered with dark marks that looked like tattoos. Jake had read that Asterians only marked their skin when they had done something wrong. Princess Lyra walked with her head high, but Jake could see anger in her eyes. She did not look at her father. Instead, she looked straight at Jake. Her 4 eyes studied him carefully, as if she was trying to figure out what kind of person he was. "My daughter," said King Valdris, his voice now cold and hard. "She has brought shame to our family with her strange ideas about other species. She believes that all beings should be treated equally, no matter where they come from or what they look like." The other aliens in the chamber made sounds of disgust. This was clearly a terrible idea to them. "She has refused to marry several worthy princes from other great families," the king continued. "She has spoken against the natural order of things. She has even suggested that the Galactic Council should change its ways." He looked at his daughter with disappointment. "Perhaps marriage to a human will teach her the value of knowing one's place." Jake understood now why everyone was laughing. This was not an honor. It was a punishment for both him and the princess. The king was giving his disgraced daughter to a human because he thought humans were not important. It was meant to be an insult. Princess Lyra finally spoke. Her voice was clear and strong. "Father, I have always known my place. My place is standing up for what is right, even when others do not want to hear it." "Silence!" the king shouted. "You will marry this human, and you will both travel to the neutral moon of Axis Prime. The ceremony will take place there in 1 month. All the great families will attend to witness this union." Jake looked at the princess, and she looked back at him. For a moment, he thought he saw something in her eyes that was not anger or sadness. It might have been hope. "The matter is settled," said King Valdris. "Guards, prepare a transport ship. Make sure it is not too comfortable. They should have time to think about their situation during the journey." As the guards led them away, Jake heard the aliens in the chamber laughing again. They thought they had seen something very funny today. They thought they had put 2 troublemakers in their place, but Jake had learned something important. He had learned that Princess Lyra was not just a disgraced daughter. She was someone who believed in the same things he did. She believed that all people deserve to be treated with respect, no matter what they looked like or where they came from. As they walked through the corridors of the great building, Jake began to think that maybe this marriage would not be the punishment that King Valdris intended. Maybe it would be the beginning of something much more important. The stars outside the windows seemed to shine a little brighter as Jake and Princess Lyra were led to their transport ship. Neither of them knew it yet, but they were about to change the galaxy forever. The transport ship was cold and dark inside. Jake sat on a hard metal bench in the small room they had given him. The walls were gray, and there was only one small window. He could see stars moving slowly past as the ship traveled through space. A guard with silver skin and 4 eyes brought him food twice a day. The food was strange and did not taste like anything from Earth. The guard never spoke to him. Jake tried to ask questions, but the guard would just leave the tray and walk away. On the 3rd day, the guard brought Princess Lyra to his room. She wore simple clothes now, not the fancy dress she had worn in the council chamber. Her silver skin still had the dark marks on it, but she looked less angry than before. "Your father wants us to get to know each other," the guard said in a flat voice. "You have 2 hours. He left and locked the door behind him. Jake and Princess Lyra looked at each other for a long moment. Neither of them knew what to say. I'm sorry," Jake said finally. "I did not know that asking for mining rights would cause problems for you." Princess Lyra sat down on the bench across from him. "It is not your fault," she said. "My father has been looking for a way to get rid of me for years. You just gave him the excuse he needed. Why does he want to get rid of you?" She laughed. But it was not a happy sound. "Because I ask too many questions. Because I think all people should be treated fairly. Because I do not believe that being born into a royal family makes someone better than others. Jake studied her face. Those sound like good ideas to me. They are terrible ideas if you are trying to stay in power, she said. My father rules. Because people believe he is better than them? If they start thinking that all people are equal, they might not want to obey him anymore. Is that why you have those marks on your skin? Princess Lyra touched one of the dark tattoos on her arm. Each mark represents a time I failed to do what my family wanted. This one is for when I refused to marry Prince Zarian of the Vrektor. This one is for when I spoke against the slave trade at a royal dinner. This one is for when I helped some refugees find homes on our worlds. Jake counted the marks he could see. There were many of them. You have been fighting for a long time. Yes, she said, and now I am being punished by being married to a human. My father thinks this is the worst thing that could happen to me. What do you think? Princess Lyra looked at him carefully. I think humans are more interesting than my father believes. I have been studying your species for the past few years. You do things that no other species does. Like what? You work together even when you are different from each other. On your planet, you have people with different skin colors and different beliefs, but you still build things together. You fight wars together, you explore space together. Jake nodded. We learn that we are stronger when we help each other. That is not how things work in the galaxy, Princess Lyra said. Each species stays with their own kind. Zephyrians only trust other Zephyrians. The Vrektor only work with other Vrektor. But humans seem to make friends with anyone. We had to learn that, Jake said. For thousands of years, humans fought with each other all the time. We almost destroyed our own planet. But we finally figured out that fighting each other was stupid. We were all humans, so we should all work together. But you still fight sometimes? Yes, but now we fight about ideas, not about what we look like or where we were born. And we have rules about how to fight fairly. Princess Lyra was quiet for a while. She seemed to be thinking about something important. Tell me about your military, she said suddenly. Jake was surprised by the question. Why do you want to know about that? Because I want to understand how humans win battles. I have read reports about human soldiers. They are not the strongest or the fastest, but they win fights against species that should be able to defeat them easily. Jake thought about this. We are good at changing our plans when we need to. If one way does not work, we try another way. We are also good at using what we have around us, even if it was not made for fighting. Can you give me an example? Well, there was a battle on a planet called Kepler 7. Some pirates attacked a human colony there. The colony only had a few soldiers, and they did not have good weapons. But they used farming tools and mining equipment to fight back. They dug traps and set up tricks. They made the pirates think the colony was empty, then attacked them when they were not expecting it. Princess Lyra leaned forward. The pirates were better armed, much better. They had energy weapons and battle armor. But the human soldiers knew the land better. They made the pirates come to them instead of fighting in the open. They turned the whole colony into a trap. And they won? They won. The pirates gave up and left the planet. Princess Lyra smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. That is exactly what I thought. Humans do not fight the way others expect them to fight. Why are you so interested in fighting? Her smile disappeared. Because I think there is going to be a war soon. Not between species, but between the people who have power and the people who do not. The Galactic Council has been treating smaller species badly for too long. Someday, those species are going to fight back. Jake felt a chill. Do you think that is a good thing? I think it is necessary, she said, but I also think it will be very dangerous. The Council has armies and weapons that most species cannot match. If there is a war, the smaller species will need to be very smart about how they fight. Before Jake could answer, the ship suddenly shook. The lights went out for a moment, then came back on. An alarm started making loud noises. What was that? Jake asked. Princess Lyra stood up and went to the small window. I think we are under attack. Jake joined her at the window. He could see other ships outside, smaller and faster than their transport. Red lights flashed from the attacking ships. "Pirates," Princess Lyra said. "They must have heard that an Asterian princess was traveling on this ship." The transport shook again, harder this time. Jake could hear shouting from somewhere else on the ship. "We need to get out of here," he said. "The door is locked." Jake looked around the room. It was small and did not have much in it, but he noticed that one of the wall panels was loose. He had seen panels like that on human ships. "Help me with this," he said, pointing to the panel. Princess Lyra used her strength to pull the panel away from the wall. Behind it was a narrow space with pipes and wires. "Maintenance tunnel," Jake said. "Every ship has them. We can use this to move around without the guards seeing us." "Where do we go?" "To the control room. If we can get there, maybe we can help fight off the pirates." Princess Lyra stared at him. "You want to help the people who are taking us to a forced marriage?" "I want to help the people who are being attacked by pirates," Jake said. "We can worry about the marriage later." She thought about this for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but I have one condition." "What?" "You let me help plan the fight." "I know more about Asterian ship systems than you do," Jake grinned. "Deal. Now let us go save this ship." They crawled into the maintenance tunnel just as another explosion shook the transport. Jake led the way through the narrow space, following the pipes toward the front of the ship. Princess Lyra crawled behind him, her 4 eyes helping her see. In the dark dot as they moved through the tunnel, Jake realized that something important was happening. He and Princess Lyra were not just running from danger together, they were starting to work as a team. She had good ideas, and she was not afraid to act on them. He had experience with tactics and problem-solving. Maybe this forced marriage would turn out to be something neither of their families had expected. Maybe it would be the beginning of a real partnership. The ship shook again, and Jake heard the sound of metal breaking. They were running out of time. But for the first time since he had arrived at the Galactic Council, Jake felt like he had a chance to win. The neutral moon of Axis Prime was covered in white buildings that sparkled like jewels. Jake looked out the window of their new transport ship as they approached the landing pad. Hundreds of other ships were already there. Some were as big as cities, others were small and fast. All of them belonged to the most powerful families in the galaxy. "They all came to watch us," Princess Lyra said quietly. She sat next to Jake, wearing a new dress that her father had sent. It was beautiful, but felt like a cage. "They want to see the human marry the disgraced princess." Jake wore a fancy suit that the Asterian servants had made for him. It was uncomfortable and made him look like someone he was not. "Let them watch," he said. "We know what we are really doing here." During the fight with the pirates, Jake and Princess Lyra had worked together perfectly. She had guided him through the ship's systems while he had planned their attack. They had disabled the pirates' weapons and captured their leader. The Asterian guards had been amazed, but they told everyone it was just luck. Jake and Princess Lyra knew better. They had learned that they made a good team. More importantly, they had made a plan. The wedding ceremony was held in the Great Hall of Axis Prime. The room was enormous, with walls made of clear crystal that showed the stars outside. Thousands of aliens sat in rows, all watching as Jake and Princess Lyra walked toward the altar. King Valdris stood at the front of the room, wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid gold. Next to him was the High Priest of the Cosmic Order, a strange being that looked like a tree made of light. The priest would perform the ceremony using the old laws that all species followed. Jake could hear the aliens whispering as he walked. Some of them laughed quietly, others made sounds of disgust. They all thought this was very funny or very sad. "Look at them," Princess Lyra whispered. "They think they are watching a punishment." "They are about to learn something," Jake whispered back. When they reached the altar, the high priest began to speak in the old language. Jake had learned some of the words during the trip to Axis Prime. The priest was asking the spirits of the galaxy to bless this union between 2 different species. "Do you, Jake Morrison of the human species, take this woman to be your wife according to the laws of the cosmic order?" The priest asked. "I do," Jake said in a loud, clear voice. Do you, Princess Lyra of the Asterian Empire, take this man to be your husband according to the laws of the cosmic order? I do, Princess Lyra said, her 4 eyes shining. The high priest raised his arms. Light flowed from his fingers and surrounded Jake and Princess Lyra. By the power of the cosmic order, I declare you husband and wife. You are now bound by the ancient laws that cannot be broken. The crowd clapped politely, but Jake could tell they were not really happy. They were just waiting for the ceremony to end so they could go back to their ships and forget about the whole thing, but Jake and Princess Lyra were not finished. Before we leave, Jake said loudly, my wife and I have something to say. The crowd became quiet. King Valdris looked angry. This was not part of the plan. We want to thank everyone for coming to our wedding, Princess Lyra said. It means a lot to us that so many important people are here. Jake stepped forward. We also want to make an announcement. My wife and I have decided to start a new colony on a world in the Outer Rim. This colony will be different from others in the galaxy. Different how? Asked someone in the crowd. It will be open to everyone, Princess Lyra said. Any species, any family, any person who wants to live in peace with others will be welcome. The crowd began to whisper loudly. This was not what they had expected to hear. King Valdris stood up. Lyra, you will return to your duties as a princess of the Asterian Empire. This nonsense about colonies ends now. No, father, Princess Lyra said calmly. I am no longer just a princess, I am also the wife of a human colony leader. According to the laws of the cosmic order, I have the right to choose where I live and what I do. Jake could see that King Valdris was getting very angry. The king's 4 eyes were turning red, which meant he was losing control of his temper. You are still my daughter, the king said. You will obey me. Actually, Jake said, she is now part of the human colony. And human colonies have the right to make their own decisions about how they live. It is one of the old laws that the Galactic Council still follows. This was true. Jake had studied the laws very carefully. When 2 species married, they created a new legal entity that had rights under the ancient treaties. Furthermore, Princess Lyra added, as a married couple, we have the right to claim the mining rights that were promised to humanity. Those rights include the planet we want to use for our colony. The crowd was no longer whispering. They were talking loudly and angrily. Many of them were standing up and pointing at Jake and Princess Lyra. This is ridiculous, said one of the Zephyrian delegates. They are trying to use the marriage to gain political power. Exactly, Jake said with a smile. Just like every other royal marriage in the history of the galaxy, King Valdris looked like he was about to explode. You think you are very clever, human, but you have no idea what you are doing. You have no army, no weapons, no allies. How do you expect to protect this colony of yours? We have something better than armies, Princess Lyra said. We have information. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and images appeared in the air above the crowd. The images showed documents, recordings, and pictures that made many of the aliens in the crowd gasp. During our journey here, we had a lot of time to study the files on our transport ship, Jake said. We learned many interesting things about how the Galactic Council really works. The images showed secret meetings, hidden bank accounts, and illegal trades. They showed how the council members had been stealing from smaller species for hundreds of years. They showed how the council had been lying to their own people about what was really happening in the galaxy. We also learned about the slave markets on Titan 7, Princess Lyra said, and the illegal weapons testing on the moon of Kappa Beta, and the way the council has been poisoning the water on worlds that do not pay their taxes. The crowd was in chaos now. Many of the aliens were shouting at each other. Some were trying to leave, but the doors had been locked. Jake and Princess Lyra had planned this very carefully. Of course, Jake said. We do not want to cause trouble for anyone. We just want to live in peace on our new world. If the council leaves us alone, we will keep this information to ourselves. But if anyone tries to stop us, Princess Lyra added, copies of all these files will be sent to every news service in the galaxy. Every species will learn the truth about how the council has been treating them. King Valdris was so angry that he could barely speak. You dare to threaten the most powerful beings in the galaxy? We are not threatening anyone, Jake said. We are just explaining how things are going to work from now on. You have made a terrible mistake, said one of the Vector leaders. The Council has armies that could destroy your little colony in minutes. Maybe, Princess Lyra said. But first, those armies would have to find us. And they would have to do it before the information we have gets released. And they would have to explain to their own people why they are attacking a peaceful colony. Jake looked out at the crowd of angry aliens. We know this is not what you expected when you came here today. You thought you were going to watch a human and a disgraced princess be humiliated. Instead, you are watching the birth of something new. What do you want? King Valdris asked through gritted teeth. We want to be left alone, Princess Lyra said. We want to build our colony and live our lives in peace. We want the same rights that every other species has. And if you give us those rights, Jake added, we will be happy to trade with you. We will share our technology and our knowledge. We will be good neighbors. The high priest, who had been quiet during all of this, suddenly spoke. The ceremony is complete. The marriage is legal under the laws of the cosmic order. The new colony has the right to exist. This was not what the council members wanted to hear, but they could not argue with the high priest. The cosmic order was older than any of their governments. As Jake and Princess Lyra left the Great Hall, they could hear the aliens behind them arguing loudly. Some wanted to attack the new colony immediately. Others wanted to try to negotiate. A few were already planning to leave the council and join the new colony themselves. Do you think our plan will work? Princess Lyra asked as they walked to their ship. I think we just changed the galaxy forever, Jake said. Whether that is good or bad, we will find out soon. Behind them, the most powerful beings in the galaxy. We're learning that sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest actions. A forced marriage between a human and a disgraced princess had become the first step in a revolution that would shake the foundations of their world. The planet that Jake and Princess Lyra chose for their colony was called New Haven. It was a world of red rocks and blue skies, with 3 moons that made the nights bright. The mining equipment from Jake's original colony ship worked perfectly. Here, within weeks, they had built the first buildings and started digging for the metals they needed. But New Haven was more than just a mining colony. Every day, ships arrived carrying people from dozens of different species. They came because they had heard about Jake and Princess Lyra's message. They came because they wanted to live somewhere that all people were treated equally. The first to arrive were the Keth, a species of small, furry beings who were very good at fixing machines. The Galactic Council had made them work as slaves. For hundreds of years? When they heard about New Haven, thousands of them escaped their old worlds and came to help build the colony. Next came the Nolans, who looked like humans but had skin that changed colors with their emotions. They had been treated as servants by the Zephyrians for so long that most other species thought they were not very smart. But when Jake and Princess Lyra gave them real jobs to do, they proved to be excellent teachers and doctors. The Trillic arrived in large family groups. They were tall and thin, with 6 arms that made them wonderful builders. The Vector had used them to construct their great cities, but had never paid them fairly. On New Haven, they built homes for everyone and were proud of their work. Every species that came to New Haven brought something useful. The Ethereals who joined them were rebels who had been thrown out of their gas cities. They were excellent at finding metals and water underground. The Zephyrians who came were outcasts, who had been rejected by their crystal families. They used their natural light to power the colony's machines, even some. Asterians came to New Haven. They were younger members of royal families who were tired of the old ways. They brought advanced technology and ships that could travel very fast. Jake spent his days training all these different species to work together. This was not easy. Each species had its own way of doing things. The Keth liked to work alone and talk to their machines. The Nolans preferred to work in groups and make decisions together. The Trillic wanted to build everything to last forever. while the Ethereals wanted to change things constantly. But Jake had learned something important during his years in the human military. Different ways of thinking could be a strength, not a weakness. He taught each species to appreciate what the others could do. The Keth learned to explain their machine repairs to the Nolans. The Nolans learned to plan buildings with the Trillic. The Trillic learned to accept changes from the Ethereals. Princess Lyra worked on the political side of things. She used her knowledge of galactic law to make sure their colony was legal. She also sent messages to species all over the galaxy, telling them about what was happening on New Haven. These messages were broadcast on secret channels that the Galactic Council could not control. Her messages were simple, but powerful. She told people that they did not have to accept being treated badly. She told them that all species were equal and deserved respect. She told them that if they worked together, they could build something better than what the Council offered. These messages spread faster than anyone expected. Soon, there were protests on dozens of worlds. Species that had been quiet for centuries began to demand better treatment. Some left their old homes and traveled to New Haven. Others stayed and fought for changes in their own governments. King Valdris was furious. He sent messages to Jake and Princess Lyra, ordering them to stop their colony and return to the Asterian Empire. When they refused, he threatened to send his armies to destroy New Haven. Jake and Princess Lyra knew this threat was real. The Asterian Empire had some of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Their ships could destroy planets if they wanted to. But Jake had a plan. He had been studying the way the Galactic Council fought wars. They were used to fighting other organized armies with clear command structures. They would send their big ships to attack enemy fleets in open space. They would use their advanced weapons to overpower their enemies through superior firepower, but Jake had learned a different way of fighting during his studies of human history. He had read about wars where small groups of fighters had defeated much larger armies by using tactics that the big armies did not expect. When the first Asterian battle fleet arrived at New Haven, they found something that confused them. There were no big defensive ships waiting to fight them. There were no weapon platforms or shield generators. The colony looked almost defenseless. The Asterian commander, General Corax, was King Valdris's brother. He was a proud warrior who had won many battles for the Empire. He expected the people of New Haven to surrender as soon as they saw his fleet. Instead, Jake sent him a message. General Corax, you are welcome to land on New Haven and talk with us. We have no wish to fight with the Asterian Empire. General Corax was insulted. I did not come here to talk. I came here to end this rebellion. There is no rebellion, Jake replied. We are just a peaceful colony trying to live our lives. If you attack us, you will be attacking innocent people. You are harboring criminals and spreading lies about the Galactic Council, General Corax said. Surrender now, and I will make your punishment quick. Jake looked at Princess Lyra, who nodded. They had prepared for this moment. General, I am sending you a list of all the people living on New Haven. You will see that none of them are criminals. They are refugees, workers, and families who just want to live in peace. The list that Jake sent contained detailed information about every person on New Haven. It showed that they were teachers, doctors, engineers, and farmers. It showed that they had children and elderly parents. It showed that they were not soldiers or rebels, but ordinary people trying to build a better life. General Corax studied the list. He was a soldier, but he was not cruel. The idea of attacking innocent families bothered him. These people are breaking the law by leaving their homeworlds without permission, he said, but his voice was less certain than before. What law? Princess Lyra asked. Show me the law that says people cannot choose where they want to live. General Corax searched through his legal databases. He found laws about taxation, laws about military service, and laws about trade. But he could not find any law that said people had to stay on the worlds where they were born. While General Corax was looking through laws, something else was happening. The story of New Haven was being broadcast across the galaxy. People on thousands of worlds were watching to see what would happen when the Asterian fleet arrived. Many of these people were citizens of the Asterian Empire. They were watching their own military prepare to attack a peaceful colony. They were seeing their government threaten innocent families. Messages began arriving at General Corax's ship. They came from Asterian citizens who were angry about what their government was doing. They came from soldiers in other parts of the fleet who did not want to fight this battle. They came from members of the royal family who thought King Valdris was making a mistake. Jake and Princess Lyra had planned this carefully. They knew that the Asterian Empire depended on the support of its people. If those people turned against the government, even the most powerful weapons would not be enough to keep the empire together. "General," Jake said in another message, "your brother the king sent you here to destroy us. But destroying us will not solve his problems. It will only make them worse." "The galaxy is changing," Princess Lyra added. "People are tired of being told that some species are better than others. They are tired of being afraid of their own governments. If you attack us, you will prove that their fears are justified." General Corax looked at the planet below him. He could see the lights of the colony, the ships coming and going, the peaceful activity of people building their lives. He thought about his orders from King Valdris. He thought about the messages from his own people. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "All ships," he announced to his fleet, "we are withdrawing from New Haven. We will return to the Asterian Empire and report that the colony poses no military threat." Some of his officers protested, but General Corax had made up his mind. He knew that attacking New Haven would start a war that the Asterian Empire could not win. Not because they lacked weapons, but because they would be fighting against an idea that was spreading faster than any army could move. As the Asterian fleet left New Haven, celebrations began on the planet below. But Jake and Princess Lyra knew this was only the beginning. King Valdris would not give up easily, and other members of the Galactic Council would be watching to see what happened next. The revolution had begun, and there was no turning back. The news of General Corax's withdrawal from New Haven spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, similar colonies began appearing on dozens of worlds. The Keth started their own free settlements. The Nolans declared independence from their Zephyrian masters. The Trillic refused to work on any more projects for the Vrektor unless they were paid fairly. King Valdris was furious when he learned that his own brother had disobeyed orders. He called General Corax back to the capital world and threw him in prison, but this only made things worse. Many Asterian soldiers respected General Corax and thought he had done the right thing. Some of them quit the military rather than fight. Against peaceful colonies, the Galactic Council held emergency meetings every day. They tried to figure out how to stop the rebellion before it destroyed their power completely. Some members wanted to attack all the new colonies at once. Others wanted to try to negotiate with the rebels. A few even suggested that maybe the council should change the way it operated, but Jake and Princess Lyra were already working on the next part of their plan. They had been gathering information about the council's activities for months. Now they were ready to use that information in a way that would shock the entire galaxy. Princess Lyra sent a message to every news service in known space. The message contained thousands of documents, recordings, and pictures that showed exactly how the Galactic Council really worked. It showed how they had been stealing money from smaller species. It showed how they had been lying to their own people about wars and disasters. It showed how they had been keeping entire species as slaves, while telling everyone they were protecting them. But the most shocking revelation was about the Council's secret plan called the Great Reduction. This plan involved slowly poisoning the air and water on worlds inhabited by species the Council considered inferior. The goal was to reduce the population of these species until they were too weak to cause trouble. When this information was released, the galaxy erupted in rage. Species that had been loyal to the Council for centuries turned against it overnight. Riots broke out on the capital worlds. Government buildings were attacked and destroyed. Council members had to flee to hidden bunkers to escape the anger of their own people. Jake knew this was the moment to act. He and Princess Lyra sent messages to all the rebel colonies, asking them to send representatives to New Haven for a special meeting. They also invited any council members who wanted to help create a new government. The meeting was held in the Great Assembly Hall that the colonists had built on New Haven. Representatives from over 200 species attended. Some came from the rebel colonies, others came from worlds that had just declared independence from the council. A few came from governments that were trying to reform themselves. Jake stood at the front of the hall and looked out at the crowd. He saw species that had been enemies for thousands of years sitting next to each other. He saw former slaves talking with former masters. He saw young and old, rich and poor, all united by the idea that everyone deserved to be treated fairly. Friends, Jake began, his voice carrying across the hall, we are here because we believe in something simple. We believe that all people have the right to live in peace and freedom. We believe that no one species is better than another. We believe that we are stronger when we work together. The crowd cheered and clapped. But Jake raised his hand for silence. But believing in these things is not enough, he continued. We must build something new. We must create a government that serves all people, not just the powerful ones. Princess Lyra stood up beside her husband. The old Galactic Council ruled through fear and lies. They stayed in power by making different species fight each other. They told everyone that conflict was natural and that some beings were meant to rule while others were meant to serve. We know better, Jake said. We have seen what happens when different species work together. We have seen the miracles that can happen when people are free to use their talents and follow their dreams. Over the next 3 days, the representatives worked together to create the framework for a new government. They called it the Galactic Federation. Unlike the old council, the Federation would be led by elected representatives from every member species. No single species would have more power than others, and all important decisions would be made by majority vote. The Federation would have laws protecting the rights of all citizens, regardless of what species they belonged to. It would have courts where disputes could be settled fairly. It would have a military that existed only to protect member worlds from outside threats, not to conquer or control. Most importantly, the Federation would be built on the principle that had made New Haven successful, cooperation instead of competition. Member species would share technology, resources, and knowledge. They would help each other solve problems and build better lives for everyone. As the representatives worked on these plans, King Valdris made one final desperate attempt to stop them. He gathered the remaining loyal forces of the old council and launched a massive attack on New Haven. He brought hundreds of warships, thousands of soldiers, and weapons powerful enough to destroy entire continents. But Jake and Princess Lyra had prepared for this moment. They had been working with military leaders from dozens of species to create a defense plan that the council would never expect. When King Valdris's fleet arrived at New Haven, they found the planet surrounded by a strange collection of ships. Some were big and powerful, others were small and fast. Some were military vessels, others were converted cargo ships or passenger liners. They came from every species in the galaxy, and they were all flying the same flag, the symbol of the new Galactic Federation. King Valdris was confident that his advanced fleet could defeat this ragtag collection of ships. He had superior weapons, better training, and more experience. But he had made the same mistake that powerful armies had been making for thousands of years. He had underestimated his enemies. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of fighting in the traditional way with big ships firing at each other in formation, the Federation fleet used tactics that Jake had learned from human military history. They attacked in small groups from multiple directions. They used the differences between species as advantages instead of weaknesses. The Ethereals used their ability to become invisible to spy on the Council fleet and report their movements. The Keth used their small, fast ships to disable the big warships. Weapons. The Trillic used their strength to board enemy vessels and capture them from the inside. The Nolans used their color-changing skin to confuse the enemy about which ships were which. Most importantly, all these different species worked together perfectly. They communicated constantly, adapted their plans when things went wrong, and helped each other when they needed it. The council forces, used to fighting in rigid formations with clear command structures, could not cope with this kind of flexible, cooperative warfare. Within hours, King Valdris's mighty fleet was defeated. Some ships were destroyed, others were captured, and many simply surrendered when they realized they were fighting a losing battle. King Valdris himself was taken prisoner when his flagship was boarded by a joint team of humans, Asterians, and Keth. As he was led away in chains, he looked at Jake with hatred in his 4 eyes. "You have destroyed everything," he said. "The galaxy will fall into chaos without the council to maintain order." "Maybe," Jake replied, "but we are going to try something different. We are going to see what happens when people are free to choose their own destiny." Princess Lyra looked at her father with sadness, not anger. "I wish you could have seen what we have built here. I wish you could have understood that ruling through fear is not the only way." With the defeat of King Valdris, the last resistance to the new Federation collapsed. Species after species joined the new government, attracted by its promise of equality and cooperation. The remaining council members either fled to distant parts of the galaxy or agreed to stand trial for their crimes. Jake and Princess Lyra were elected as the first president and vice president of the Galactic Federation. They moved the capital to New Haven, which had grown from a small mining colony into a thriving city where beings from hundreds of different species lived and worked together. Years later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Federation's new Capitol building, watching ships from all over the galaxy arrive and depart. Princess Lyra joined him, carrying their young son, who had inherited his mother's silver skin and his father's curiosity about the world. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your father had not forced us to marry?" Jake asked. Princess Lyra smiled. "I think we would have found each other eventually. The galaxy was ready for change. It just needed someone to show the way. And you think we showed the way?" "I think we showed that different does not mean inferior," she said. "I think we showed that cooperation is stronger than competition. I think we showed that everyone deserves a chance to be free." Jake nodded and put his arm around his wife. Below them, the city of New Haven bustled with activity. Beings who had once been enemies now worked side by side, building a future that none of them could have imagined when they were still under the rule of the Galactic Council.